hope you're having an amazing Monday and welcome to the Reality Bang. I'm RJ Yohann, your host for this session, and thank you for tuning in. That said, we are going to have a professional counselor for the next two shows. So if you have any questions about today's topic or any questions in general, you can send it to us at 6364252164. Now let's jump right into it. Today's topic is depression. We have a special guest for the show, Amy. Thank you for joining us. For this edition of the Reality Bang, Amy and I will be having a discussion about depression. But before that, let me give you a few points about depression, and this is taken from the World Health Organization. So, depression is a common illness characterized by persistent sadness and loss of interest in activities that one normally enjoys, accompanied by the inability to carry out these activities for at least 2 weeks. It can be like, a years, but the less amount of time is around 2 weeks. Now, depression can lead to suicide. Over 800,000 people die due to committing suicide every single year. Now, it is the second leading cause of death from in especially youth from 15 to 29 years of age. And 1 in 20 Indians suffer from depression. Now let's jump right into today's discussion. My question to Amy is, what is depression?
From the World Health Organization as well, that is the definition of depression, and I don't really know much about depression. From what I've heard, it's like this prolonged sadness. You can't do things that you usually were able to do. You're very isolated even when you're with people. Those are general things that I've heard, but I don't really know.
Okay, so one of my friends, he had this mentor of his, and his mentor described depression as, he wouldn't really call it a mental disease, he would rather call it, a change of reality. Like, for example, like people who are depressed because their reality is depressed. And I'll give you an example. So he told this on the occasion because one of my friends, he did face depression and really, really bad depression. So he recently in the sense like around 2 years ago, and he recently broke up with his girlfriend. And this girl, she cheated on him really badly. And he was at the lowest point in his life, and his mentor helped him out a lot during this time, and his mentor did give him a lot of, keys of motivation, and that helped him, succeed later on. I'll get to the success part later on during the show, but coming on to my second question now, why is it difficult to talk about this issue on depression, for people to talk about it?
In Asian countries, there's a stigma against any sort of mental weakness. The moment you say it, it's automatically you're crazy, you're weak, there's something wrong with you. And I think people are afraid of being labeled that way, so they don't even say when they have problems that are very easily solvable. There is professional help available, there's medication available, but people aren't willing to come forward because of the social stigma. I think it has to do with pride, but it's a cultural thing, I feel.
Yeah, about the pride part, I think you're very, close to something, or on to something, in other words, because let's talk about my friend again. When he was suffering to depression, he never really wanted to share it with anyone because he was, afraid of the part, like, people are going to judge him, people are going to call him weak for, having depression, like being at the lowest of his low. So, I mean, his mentor came to know because he was with his mentor, like, a very long time, about 8 hours a day, around that. So, his mentor was able to figure out what was happening, and he did help him. Now, the third question is, how can people fight against depression?
To answer this question, like I said, I don't want to go into too deep because I'm not a professional, but I did find a website that was written by a doctor. It's called How to Overcome Mental Weaknesses. It's written by Dr. Robert Glatter.
Okay.
So he lists 7 mental weaknesses, and he also says how to overcome them. So I thought we could go through them like list-wise. So one of the first ones, feeling envious of other people's achievements. So this is a sign of mental weakness. And when anyone else is successful in anything, there's always going to be depression. Haters gonna hate. But this is not something that you should be proud of, because it shows that you are not self-confident enough. You're weak, and you feel as though you've been cheated out of opportunities that were not given to you, even though you don't really know what they went through, you don't really know what they did to get where they are. So you just make assumptions. It's a sign of weakness. The second one is a tendency to get angry quickly. This is a strange weakness because it makes you feel strong when you get angry, you start yelling, you feel powerful, but it's actually, it from the outside also, it makes you look very insecure, and it is a weakness. One reason to get angry is that they associate their successes or failures with their personality, both on a professional and intellectual level. So even this, it's like mostly about insecurities. They don't feel secure in themselves, so they get angry quickly. So I'm going to quote this article. Such people are stuck in their minds all the time, and they aren't able to come out of their heads. When somebody challenges them professionally or intellectually, they act like they are above it all. So to overcome this, it's you should realize that how to deal with this is to have a more positive outlook on life, and to get the best out of unpleasant situations. Being optimistic, basically. Another one is a reluctance to venture out of your comfort zone. So this is uh, this is like, have you met people who will do one thing and they're very good at that thing, but they refuse to try anything else? It's like they don't want to show anyone else that they might be weak in that, because you have to start somewhere
Yeah.
with anything that you do. So they don't want to show that weakness to anyone. So instead of trying to overcome it, they hide it. So they're just being more weak because they can't even train to get better at something. They try to
Yeah.
dominate others. That's another one. People with a weak mentality try to have a dominant personality in every group they're in. So if they are in a group setting and they find someone who is a bit, who they perceive as weaker, they will try to bully them, or they will try to talk down on them to elevate themselves. Sure, you've noticed in a group discussion, if someone is a bit insecure, it's very obvious when they try to talk down on someone else to sort of elevate themselves. It's also because they
Yeah.
have some problems with themselves. Then masking your insecurities. Similar to the previous one, they'll do anything they can to say, I can do everything, I don't need help in anything. These are all, that arrogant facade. It's strange that when
Yeah.
people who do this, it's very obvious from
Exactly.
the outside. Like, it looks so obvious that they are weak. And then not giving yourself a margin for failure. This is similar to not stepping out of your comfort zone. uh, you should understand that these are not like things that you should blame yourself for. You should obviously take responsibility for yourself, but there are reasons why people have these sort of mental weaknesses. So, for example, they gave an example. If you grew up having to be perfect, where your parents or your guardians were very strict with you, you were not allowed to be weak in any regard, you were not allowed to fail in anything, then you have these sort of mental weaknesses because of that. And another one is being overly concerned about how others see you. So people with a weak mentality are the ones who are most concerned about how others see them. And this is another symptom associated with having a mental health issue. They focus on their appearance and the opinions of people regarding them, perhaps even leading to depression or developing a health disorder. So this one, it's not just about like physical appearance. This is also something about, like you said, social stigma. You don't want to even appear weak mentally. You don't want to appear weak socially. You've seen people, they buy big cars, or they show their wealth, or sometimes it is physical appearance. They try to build themselves up, very meticulous about the way they do everything because they don't want to appear weak, disorganized, dirty, anything like that. So the doctor ends on a positive note. The bottom line, your mental health is in your own hands. So even though these sort of problems, they may be gifted down to you by your parents or your guardians, they may be because of the situation you were in, it's your duty to take care of your mental health, because when you don't, you are affecting people around you. And there are methods to solve it. It doesn't mean that you're crazy or you're sick all the time. There are cases in them, and there's nothing wrong with that. You should always seek professional help. You can also develop healthy habits to get yourself out of situations, stop isolating yourself. A lot of ways to improve yourself, and that's in your own hands.
Yeah. So I'll just go on a little bit of a take. Now, it's not exactly anything bad. It's more of a motivation type of thing. So as I spoke about one of my friends, now he took all of this, depression that he was having, and he, used that as, motivation for him to, make himself better. And he has done that. Like 2 years have passed since the time of his breakup, and recently I met with a guy, and he has changed himself so much. He used to be a little bit, fat, overweight to an extent, and right now he is flourishing very well. He has taken all of that and he has used it in MMA. He has joined mixed martial arts for about a year and a half around that, and he is really one of the best people I've ever seen. Like one of the best changes he has ever done, using depression as motivation for him to make himself better. Now, in conclusion, like Amy and I would give you guys a few encouraging words to help you uh, regarding depression. Now, what's the one thing we as human beings have control over? Amy,
Probably
like
are
take a quick guess. What is the one thing like we as humans have control over?
our minds. Our minds are our
Ex-
castles.
Exactly. Now we have perfect control over our minds. We cannot control the weather, we cannot control outcomes, we cannot control certain situations, we cannot even control our emotions, but we can control our minds. Now, no matter how bad things got, like he, I'm talking about my friend once again. So he made it his decision to, make a change, make his life better. And he had hope that he could do it. So it made him try even harder, day by day, year by, not year by year, month by month, week by week, and so on. He made himself, extremely better. And he told me it's because of that mindset. He had that very clear mindset that could show him the vision of his future. And that's exactly what happened. And he made himself to the best version he is. Right now, it's really a great change. Now, Amy, would you like to conclude this program?
Oh yeah. Again, I will be referring to a website that was written by a professional. This one
Yeah,
is
sure.
about hope, hope and optimism. Hope versus optimism, and the article is called Five Strategies for Cultivating Hope This Year. Uh, so this one was written by, it was edited by Joe Adinci. So one of the ways that we can have hope is to start with goals. So people who are hopeful don't imagine, they act. They have pathways in their head. It's kind of like when you don't really know what you're doing, you're just going through life, whether it's work or school. But if you have like an end goal, you can go through some things that are pretty terrible. And I have like an example of this. If you're preparing for an entrance exam, nothing is worse. I mean, there are things that are worse, obviously. War,
I mean, yeah.
poverty, but
I mean,
it
don't you think it's
feels
kind of a war, a mental war with yourself?
sure.
You have to study and all of that.
Yeah,
But
it's
still,
the
continue.
worst thing. And when you look back on it, like after you're done with that, and think, how did I go through that? How was I able to just sit and study and do nothing else and like be isolated from people? How was I able to go through that? And thing is, it's because you have a goal. You see something at the end of the tunnel. There's an exam that you need to write. You know the questions. You know what you need to do. You also know what you want after that. A lot of things that you have plans for yourself. So you can go through a lot of really terrible situations as long as you have sight on something. And that's a strength that we have. Another thing is to harness the power of uncertainty. This may seem a bit strange, but this is the example that this article said. So several researchers have argued for hope to rise, individuals need to be able to perceive possibility of success. So if we know for certain that something is not going to happen, then you're just sitting depressed, sad, not depressed, just sad, feeling hopeless. So the example they give is parents with who have children who have multiple sclerosis. This disease, it was not very well studied, and there are some people who are misdiagnosed, some people who don't have it as severe, some people who get better and recover. But you know that if someone gets this really, they're going to they're going to pass away. It's a deadly disease. So what they found is that parents would reason with themselves. Since it's hard to accurately diagnose this disease, they would have hope. They would hope that their children were misdiagnosed and they would recover. That was a hope that they had because they didn't know for sure. That was like a way that in uncertainty would push hope in their eyes. Then another way that they said is to manage your attention. So hopeful and optimistic people show similarities and differences in the kinds of emotional stimuli they pay attention to in this world. This is something that I'm very familiar with. If there's some bad news, I tend to just not pay attention, just zone out. If someone tells me about a book or media to consume, and if the ending is sad, I just won't read it because I'm not reading it for that. I want to be happy. And I thought it was kind of strange, like, is this a weakness? But it's not. If you know that you are perceptible to emotional stimuli, if you know that what you read or what you watch changes how you see the world, even the music that you listen to, use that information for yourself. Don't listen to sad or threatening information. I mean, obviously you need to for the news, but do you actually, will that change anything?
Yeah, we need to know like what's really happening out in the world,
Yeah, but will it change anything? Like if a terrible accident happened to people that you don't know, will knowing change anything, or will it just make you feel hopeless? Like that. Another one is to seek community. It's pretty obvious. Everyone always says it whenever anything about depression or hope comes up. Don't isolate yourself. Be with people. Don't just sit with people. Talk to them. Be open. Find people who you can trust. Those sort of things. And then look at evidence. This is one that I really like. So hope requires trust. Hopeful people stake their trust in data, particularly in the evidence of history. The example they used in this one is, so anti-poverty activists drew hope from knowing that historically when people joined together in a resistance, they were able to create change. So they were able to hope because they've seen the past. They know that these sort of actions lead to these certain changes. They've known this, so they're hopeful because of that, something that they know. And I take a lot of hope in this similarly because I know that God has helped me a lot in the past. And there are a lot of things that I wanted or I was not able to do. But I know that everything that happened was for my good. God led me exactly where I needed to be, exactly at the right time. So, we know this from our past. I'm sure people who are in faith know that God was always with them, and they have that for the future as well as data. Anything for you?
I'd say exactly. So no matter what you're going through, like whether it's the worst case of depression or anything, always know you have someone to talk to. And there is professional help, so do seek professional help as well. And remember, if you feel like nobody is with you, always remember God is with you no matter what. God always has your back. And with that said, that officially brings us to the end of today's show. Thank you, Amy, for joining the show. Remember, guys, we air on Mondays at 4:30 p.m. Once again, apologies for the late session today. That's it for the next two shows. We'll have a professional counselor coming to answer these a few questions. So please do send in your questions to 6364252164. A huge thank you to our listeners for tuning in to this edition of The Reality Bang, your weekly dose of youth power, brought to you by FEBA Online. This is RJ Yohann. Hope you have an amazing Monday, and I'll see you next week. God bless you.